Hey, what's up, guys? This is Cody the Coin Raptor, and in today's video, we're going to go ahead and talk about what happened at the FOMC and what the Fed said and the impact that we had on the crypto market and specifically with Bitcoin. Now, before we get to that, be sure to subscribe, be sure to hit that like button, and be sure to check me out on X. So, we had a kind of a wild day for Bitcoin and the crypto markets today. If we take a look at our economic calendar, we can see here that today we're actually having the FOMC meeting, the Fed interest rate decision, and Fed Chair Powell's press conference. I'm going to go ahead and cover very briefly what he was talking about there, and then we're going to go ahead and see how that affected the market. Now, this is kind of a nice summary here by Business Insider, but basically they break everything down that he said here, and they decided to pause the interest rate hikes. Okay, so they didn't decide to hike this time, but the most important thing is they said that the hikes were not off the table for the rest of the year. In fact, they're predicting probably one more rate hike for the year, and from there, who knows exactly. We're actually going to talk about the probability of them doing additional hikes as well in the future. But the most important thing he also said was that they no longer forecast a recession. Okay, so this is really important. A lot of people come out and they're very, bearish on everything Powell has to say, and he tends to come off kind of hawkish in order to drive the market down. But there is some important silver linings that we need to realize here, and one of the most important ones is the fact that they walked back the idea that there was going to be a recession. They had previously talked about it in the past couple of the FOMC meetings, but the simple fact is that right now we're still seeing fairly strong growth in the economy, and the possibility that we could avoid a recession is definitely still on the table. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the probability of future rate hikes. If you go here and take a look at the CME FedWatch tool, that actually puts us at about for the next meeting at about 71% chance of staying where we currently are, which is 525 to 550. There is a 28% chance of one raise, okay? And that would raise to about 0.25%, or 550 to 575. Now, my own personal thoughts on this, I think they're honestly done. I'd be very surprised if we have one more rate hike because inflation's been coming down, and on top of that, there's been some concerns that the economy is actually starting to deteriorate a little bit, and so the Fed, in order to engineer this soft landing, they're going to have to actually they're going to have to stop raising and instead continue the pause. But if we go ahead and take a look at the other meetings, this is for November. If you look at the 13th of December, we can see that the majority is still 53% on no additional hikes. We go to January, again, the majority is on no additional hikes. So for the rest of the year, basically the rest of the market also believes that there are going to be no additional hikes. So the assumption coming into this meeting was that they were not going to hike. They did not. And as a result, we got kind of a weird sort of market reaction. If we take a look at our Bitcoin and we zoom into the hourly, we can actually see the moment where they made that FOMC call here, right here, this big fat red candle right here, and the market went down almost 1% on that news. But what's important to realize is that Bitcoin has actually shown a fair amount of strength in the past couple of days. We have multiple layers of support that we can count on if we see some more weakness in the market, including the 200 hourly moving average, which right now is at 26,600. And then if we back out to the 200 day, we can see that we're actually right on top of the 200 day moving average for support. Okay, so we expect that this support level is going to be fairly strong here at about, call it 27K. That's going to be a strong support level. Now, Bitcoin ultimately needs to hold this support down here, about 26,400, in order to make a run at the resistance here at 27,700. Okay, so right now, I actually think that we're in a fairly good spot for Bitcoin. If you'll notice, we're still in a nice little uptrend since that September dump. So we've been in a very nice uptrend, and this uptrend so far is still intact, even though we've seen a little bit of weakness. We can kind of draw this uptrend out a little bit. But The important point here is that if it holds, then we can push higher, and then as soon as we get past 27,700 resistance, then we'll see resistance here at about 28,600 after that point. Okay, so Bitcoin has actually been fairly strong the past couple of days. We've seen multiple green days, multiple green volume days, and again, this is the reason why I always say not to be too bearish, especially after Bitcoin kind of dumps its guts out all the way coming down here throughout the entirety of August for the most part, and then a little bit of September. We saw the price dip pretty extremely, but we've seen a nice little bounce to the upside. Now, right now, Bitcoin's not out of the woods yet. It's very possible that we can come down here and take this support level out, and then we'd have to come back and test support at 25,300 and then below that level. But for now, I do feel as though we're in a much better place than we were a couple of weeks ago. The only thing that worries me right now is that the dollar index continues its march higher, and the resistance point that we talked about earlier of 105, this seems to be breaching this resistance point. Now it's at about 105.60. But even if it gets past this point, there's also very strong resistance here at about 106. That's where I would expect the next major point of resistance for the dollar index. Now, as a reminder, the Bitcoin tends to trade inversely to the dollar index, so a strong dollar is not good for Bitcoin. And at some point, though, in the past, say in about the past couple of months, it's been on nothing but an uptrend, and it needs to eventually pull back, and the strength of a dollar needs to take a little bit of a rest. Now, the Bitcoin dominance still very strong, actually pushing past to 50%, and we can go ahead and get rid of this downtrend. Now we're in a very firmly established uptrend, and it's holding support here at 48%. This is something that we're going to probably wind up seeing move even higher in the coming weeks. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about what's going on in the futures market. So futures market, we saw just basically like the anatomy of that one red candle here. We can see that we've had significant long liquidations during that event, about 1.75 million on 1 hour, and about 3.73 million worth of long liquidations happened within those 2 hours. But overall, it does seem like the market reaction was a little muted. Honestly, there's just not a lot of volatility for the futures. We can go ahead and we can take a look at our open interest here. I can zoom out and we'll take a look at the daily instead of the hourly, and we can see based on the open interest that it's just really low, and so volume is going to be very, or the volatility is going to be very low for the futures, for the Bitcoin futures. But for now, it looks like traders are battling between short and longs. The shorts and longs really have not been able to establish which one is more dominant. So that's something we're going to be looking out for here, because we take a look at the funding rate. The funding rate is telling us just barely greens, just barely long dominant. But that could flip in no time, and then we can see shorts become dominant again. Next thing I want to talk about is, as always, the exchange reserve. Exchange reserve, the number of Bitcoin on the exchanges, has actually hit another new low. So we said before, we have established a pattern of a decreasing number of coins on the exchanges, and that pattern continues to this day. We see here at about 2,036,000 Bitcoin on the exchanges, and now at a new all-time low. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the seasonality of Bitcoin. I like to talk about this because it's more of an update at what we've been talking about. This has been, normally September is a seasonably poor month for Bitcoin, but lately what we've seen here is actually that September is green, strangely enough. Now, what's interesting about this is that if September remains green every single time September has been green, it's followed up by a green October as well. So I can tell you this right now, seasonally speaking, if we get a green September, we are very likely to get a green October as well. And I think that's actually very exciting, because October and November are normally very good months for Bitcoin, and then we get into December and January, and they're both kind of in the middle of the road. But then we get to February, and February is another great month for Bitcoin. So just something to keep in mind, the seasonality of Bitcoin, and especially if you guys took advantage of those September and October drops in the Bitcoin price, and you're able to get Bitcoin at a reasonable price under this level here, in this kind of area here below our blue line, below 27K. This honestly will, I think, turn out to be a fantastic buying opportunity, at least for myself. This is not financial advice. Do your own research. But I was taking advantage of this liquidation and filling up my bags and adding my positions. But I've already talked about that. If you're interested in when I bought and how much and what my objective was, then you guys can go back and check my other videos in which I've talked about my Bitcoin buys. Okay, so that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know what you guys think about Jerome Powell and the Fed. If you think they're actually really done cutting, or if they're done raising rates and they plan to start cutting rates, I'm definitely interested in hearing about that. This is Cody the Coin Raptor, and I hope to catch you guys in the next video.